Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another Create-A-Sim video. So this is the next video in my Fill the World Create-A-Sim challenge. So basically, if this is your first one of those videos that you're catching, what I'm doing is going through each of the pre-made houses in every single one of the EA worlds and creating Sims who live in those houses. And I tried to match the Sims, both family size and personality and jobs, to the houses that they're living in. Basically trying to prevent it from generating just like, one single townie that has no money that's living in a big mansion by themselves. So this is for the next house in Oasis Springs. This is for the house Agave Abode. So we have two Sims, Estelle Winston and Darcy James. And so first up we have Estelle, and Estelle is a writer. She is, of the two Sims, she is the carefree, kind of irresponsible. Well, she's definitely irresponsible. She's irresponsible and she's also kind of immature a little bit. I'd like to think that her life up until this point has been not particularly challenging for her. Not that she's spoiled at all, but she hasn't really had too many tough breaks coming her way. So she's never really had to struggle, or, she's had the luxury, let's say, of being able to be a kid. And now that she's a young adult, she is not quite ready to let that go. So she has 2 baking skill points, a charisma skill point, 2 comedy skill points, 2 mischief skill points, and 3 writing skill points. She is also in the writer career. I believe she is level 3, I want to say. I don't remember. I'm pretty sure she's very early on in the writer career. Like, she hasn't gotten very far with it yet. And as you can tell, she has purple hair in a lovely, light purple lilac color. I actually think that she's the first Sim that I've made in this project who has an unnatural hair color. Usually that's something I don't do very much of. Not that I have anything against it, but personally, I've never dyed my hair and I've never dyed it an unnatural color especially. So it's just not something I tend to think about very much. But it really seemed to suit Estelle's character. She's creative and she's kind of, childish a little bit. So basically she's at a point in her life where she can kind of get away with having purple hair, and, maybe down the road it might not be quite as easy for her to pull it off. But it was sort of fun for me because since I personally have never had purple hair, and in The Sims, I don't even know that I've done purple hair before. I know I've done Sims with unnatural hair colors before, but it's not something I do very much, and I don't think I've ever used this purple, and oh my gosh, I love it. It is so pretty. It also helps that her hair that she has, I think it's from the Romantic Garden stuff pack, is probably one of my favorite EA made hairs in the game. I use it a lot. I probably use it too much. I don't know that I've used it on another Sim in this challenge. Maybe I have. I mean, it's hard to say. But one thing I didn't really think about when I was picking out her hair color is that then when it comes time to choose outfits, usually natural hair colors are, for the most part, except for red, they're kind of neutral. So basically most colors will work with that hair color. But when you have a color like purple, you do sort of have to plan your outfits around it. There was no way that I could have her pull off a dark purple shirt with light purple hair. It just was not going to happen. So her style is pretty youthful. Obviously she's a young adult and she's just aged up to becoming a young adult. And she hasn't really quite let go of the whole I'm a teenager thing. Maybe down the road again, she might change her style a little bit, but honestly, I'm not even sure that she will change it too much. So her aspiration is to be a writer, and her 3 traits are that she is a bookworm, she is childish, and she has commitment issues. So in general, she's very youthful. And she also has, she does have those commitment issues. So she might be a little bit flighty. And then from parenthood, I also gave her the irresponsible trait. And again, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that her life so far has sort of let her become this type of a person. So her upbringing might not have been the most strict. But I mean, in general, she's not like a bad person or anything. Like, not in the slightest. I think that she's very sweet and can be very kind. And she just loves books. Like, she's kind of nerdy a little bit. But she hasn't really had a ton of life experience just yet. So Estelle lives with one of her lifelong best friends. Her name is Darcy James. And as you'll see here in a minute, Darcy is very different from Estelle. I'd like to think they're a little bit like a yin and yang, like where Darcy is serious and focused and, motivated to do things in her life. Estelle is kind of more carefree and more whimsical and doesn't really have much of a direction in her life. So they do balance each other out very well, which is why they've been friends for, their entire lives. But what's interesting is that by living together, they've come to realize that there might just be more than a friendship feeling between the two of them. So they have sort of started down like a romantic path. They're not a couple. They're not girlfriends. They're at that very beginning stage, which, I have to say, that beginning stage, while it's very stressful, it's also a lot of fun. You're starting to realize oh, I have these feelings for this person and it's okay for me to acknowledge them. And that's just exciting. And it is, I think it's pretty safe to say that, when you spend a lot of time around one person and you become really close with them, if you are going to have romantic feelings for anybody, it might be that person. So Estelle and Darcy are sort of still in that very beginning stages of their relationship. I think it will be interesting to see in the game how that plays out long term, without player intervention. Because they are they're similar in some ways, but they're also very different people. I think Darcy's upbringing has caused her to have to develop some more real life skills a little bit earlier than Estelle did. And again, not that she had a particularly troubled upbringing, but it might not have been quite the easygoing ride that Estelle has had. So this is Darcy now. She is very athletic. She's in the athlete career. I think she's still at level 1, if I remember correctly. She's definitely in the athlete career. I don't think I advanced her very far, but she will have no trouble at all advancing in the athlete career. So she has 3 charisma skill points, 1 comedy skill point, 2 cooking skill points, 5 fitness skill points, and 3 logic skill points. So while Estelle's skills are, she has some mischief and some comedy and some charisma and baking because, I love baking. I also love cooking, but cooking you need to survive. Baking you need for fun. So Darcy, though, on the other hand, she does have good charisma, but her skills are a lot more grounded. So she already has 2 cooking skill points. She has 3 logic skill points because she is she's much more serious and analytical, I would say. She also doesn't really have the commitment issues that Estelle does. So I think that could also pose some potential problems for them. Darcy is very focused. And sometimes that type of a focus can be intimidating to somebody who has commitment issues, where Darcy has no problem at all saying yep, this is my career, this is who I'm interested in a relationship. This is my life. I'm going to buckle down, and this is what I want. And Estelle doesn't really have that same outlook just yet. She may eventually, but for right now, she's just kind of kicking back and enjoying life and exploring these newly discovered feelings for Darcy. Whereas Darcy, I think, could end up down the road kind of pressuring Estelle a little bit into saying like, all right, is this it? Are we committed to each other or not? So only time will tell there. But so for Darcy's style, Estelle wore a lot of purple, and she also wore a lot of like trendy and youthful clothing. Darcy is also still very youthful. I mean, they grew up at the same time, so they're both very young still. But Darcy's style is a little bit more sporty and casual and laid back a little bit, and isn't quite so focused on being trendy. She's a little bit more about comfort, and she likes her color blue. She wears a lot of blue, and I mean, she has a good sense of fashion, but it's definitely, I think, different than what Estelle would wear. Like, despite the fact that these two share a house, I don't see them trading clothes with one another at all. Which I have to say, like, I always see that on like TV shows and movies that like, women who live together or like sisters who live together will like trade clothes back and forth. I never really did that. Like, it's just sort of a foreign concept to me. Like, for one thing, my sister was 5 years younger than me. Was 5 years. She is 5 years younger than me. So, like, growing up, there was a very narrow period of time where we were living in the same house and we were in, like, the same age category. But even still, like, sizing never really matched up. And then you got into the fact that, like, we have very different styles. So, I think that's just sort of, like, a silly thing, like, to assume that lots of women will trade clothes with one another, but point being, that is definitely not Darcy and Estelle. So I had a hard time doing Darcy's makeup because she has very light hair, and her skin I tried to make her skin look like she's naturally much more pale than she really is, but because she's athletic and is working out outside an awful lot, she has developed like a healthy tan to her skin. And I don't know, I just had a hard time getting makeup that didn't look really harsh on her. Again, I mean, like, I have very pale skin, but I don't have blonde hair. I have very dark hair. So, the usual colors that I would naturally gravitate towards for myself don't really work so well on her. I also discovered that at some point, one of the base game lipsticks, like, there are 3 base game lipsticks that are at the very top that I tend to use a lot. One of them is like little color but a lot of gloss. One of them is like equal amount gloss and color. And then the third is a good amount of color but it's more matte. For some reason, the matte one is now showing up as being glossy. Like, it looks almost identical to the color in the next box over. So I'm not really sure when that changed. I'm hoping they fix it because, like, otherwise we don't really have matte lipsticks in the game. I really wish they would put in more makeup in The Sims 4. And I remember they did this to us back on The Sims 3, where the first couple of packs would have makeup in them, and then they just stopped. And they've done the same thing with The Sims 4, and I'm like, no, please put in more makeup. Like, I've downloaded a lot of custom content makeup, but to me, I don't necessarily want to put that on these Sims, because then in order for the Sim that you download to look like the Sim that I've uploaded, you have to track down that exact same custom content and install it in your game. And I don't want to impose that on you guys. Like, if you don't want to use custom content, you shouldn't be forced into doing it just to achieve the same look that I did. So, I mean, ideally, it would be great if EA just put in more makeup in the game, or even included it in some pack at some point, but so far they haven't done that. So anyways, stepping down off of my soapbox for the day. So you can download Estelle and Darcy and have them in your game. They are available now on the Sims 4 gallery. You can use the link below, or you can search through my username, Mrs. Tomato 1018, or through the hashtag Mrs. Tomato 1018. And yeah, so I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Let me know what you guys think about it, and I hope to see you all in my next video. Bye!